Welcome to The Drift, the podcast about psychogeography. This episode, we're drifting the Mojave Desert from Lone Pine to Las Vegas. In the next 30 minutes, we're exploring mystery and magic in the most inhospitable place to the most decadent. We're talking the American expansion west, rockets, and sex magic. Join us. I'm Carolyn Sinclair, and I'm here with Andrew Glass.
And I'm excited to be here because this is a new drift for us, right?
Right, a brand new thing.
We're going to discuss the legends of Death Valley. Have we even titled this thing yet?
I guess it's going to be the Mojave.
The Mojave, yes.
Yeah, I think Mojave is the best because it encompasses a huge amount of land, not just one city.
And we did it. Yeah. So let's just go back and forth. Let's talk about the feelings we had because I had new eyes on this journey.
Yeah.
And I had not been to Death Valley. I've been almost everywhere in California, but never through Death Valley on the journey between like Lone Pine and Vegas is what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had been through Vegas and never been through Death Valley.
Yeah, I think I have driven between California and Texas, whatever that is. You know, I think when you go by
That's a pretty good drift itself.
Indio. Yeah, I've been back. That's quite a trip. Yeah, 600 miles between LA and Arizona, probably Phoenix or Mesa, Arizona.
So this was about 600 miles we did.
Oh wow,
I
was
think,
it?
yeah.
Well, I guess we there and backed. So.
Yeah, because we kind of made a kind of an oval, perhaps, of driving.
Okay.
It's like literally here on the board, but it looks more like something else, maybe a fallopian tube. However, we did arrive in Lone Pine, and that was kind of the very most northern part, right?
Yeah.
Of the drift itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's what I want to say about that. I was kind of frightened to go through because once you have you ever been through an area like an Indian reservation where you might go, like 100 miles before you see anything like on the side of the road?
I've been through those places.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty desolate and it's kind of scary.
Right. So
to be that far away from utilities.
Right, and we started out in our, I guess we call it the Driftmobile. Right?
Yeah, the Driftmobile.
Well, we needed a good car. It was important because I think only tourists come through here. There's no playing around in the desolate desert, right?
Right.
I mean, when we stopped the car to observe and heal the land,
mm-hmm.
I was, kind of worried that the car wouldn't start when we got back in because it was 100 stupid. Is that what you say?
Yeah. Anything above 100, 304 to me, it's just 100 stupid.
It's 100 stupid. I love that. Right. So, what did you think about? I've told this. I've told a few stories so far, but we really haven't been back that long. What did you think of the wash?
What do you mean the wash?
Remember when we stopped and there was that huge cavity, which I described as the Loch Ness without any water in it, in the middle of the desert. Do you remember we stopped? We saw this large cavity, and it was kind of the beginning of.
It kind of looked like it had what is it? The waves of that look like oasis of water in the distance, but
it was like black rock.
Strange. Yeah, it was a strange phenomenon that it looked like water, even though it was the desert.
You know what I thought during that time? I thought all these people. You really didn't see many people on the road even. Like
no.
There was no.
There was not even a lot of other cars.
And when you stopped, I thought people were like, "Why do they go here? Like, are they searching for the past? Because this is like 14 million years old. This ancient, crevice where water once was. Wow. And so we were headed to the middle, which is, I guess. It's Badwater, yeah. And if you've been there, when you get to Badwater, you've kind of hit rock bottom. It's the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. Right?
Really? I thought it was like North America, but we'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're doing...
Anyway, it's 232 feet below sea level.
Yeah.
That's Badwater Basin.
Right. And so between Badwater was this huge lodge. We should get this right. It was like the inn at the Death Valley Lodge. right? And they had a valet, which said, "Dude, you're not on the list."
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And
Turns out we booked the other one.
Yeah,
So
we were down the road just a bit, which turned out.
I'm sure happens 10 times a day.
Yeah, and that's why they go to the other place.
The sign should just say.
And it wasn't that cheap. The room.
But the other one was more expensive.
Oh yeah, the other one.
The other one was like.
And looked like, where are they getting the water for this? It was beautiful. Like it was a Spanish chalet in the middle of nowhere in the desert.
Right.
I mean, there's not a tree to be had, right? And
Yeah.
and when we went to the other place.
So we did see Joshua trees, which is
Yeah.
so cool. Every time I see Joshua trees.
And
yeah, so between Arizona and Los Angeles, did I see?
you were also struck by the elevation.
Oh yeah, so we kept going.
switches.
Okay, so we had a bottle of water in the front of the car, like in the console between us, and as we continued through the desert, the bottle kept creaking, like
Yeah, they pop, right?
yeah, like because it was doing. It was expanding and contracting based on our elevation, which kept going up and down wildly. So at one point we were like at 4,000 feet.
Yeah.
And then at one point it plunged down to 3,000, then 2,000, then 0, and then like below sea level,
every
and then
30
back
miles.
at 3,000. It was like, what the heck is this place? You know?
Yeah, it looked like
was-
the moon, and then every 30 miles it was kind of a topography change, right?
Yes, it's a very interesting place because you think how to describe it, and you're like, well, there's stuff like that, but there's also stuff like this, and I don't know. It's a strange mix of
Yeah.
topography and colors. Even on one mountain, it'll be different colors. And I'm like, what's that about?
Yeah, 4 shades of rust.
Yeah, 4 shades of rust.
It's
Sounds like a
beautiful.
band.
Yeah, I mean it's like patinaed mountains, you
Right,
know, and
right.
some of them look like dripped steel, and blonde mountains.
Yes.
Large, round, bald heads.
Tan-colored, kind of carpety-looking mountains.
Remember when we got out and we were traipsing around on these bald mounds,
Yes.
and they were kind of squishy from like mud, and they had popped from water everywhere, right?
Yeah, but then they
Remember
were bone dry. It was
Yeah,
fascinating.
but
It was
bone
kind of an
dry.
interesting, track.
And 107.
It went 107.
Yeah, I mean,
And so as we walk, and there's no vegetation, it's just
Yeah.
crazy. And so, I also hoped the truck would start, but no fear.
yeah, and so it's
Sene metu.
and in the middle, you kind of hunker down in the middle of the day because it's just so hot. I mean, it was May. It shouldn't have been quite that hot yet.
Yeah, but it was crazy.
I guess in the winter it's
It was
way
crazy
better.
hot.
And,
So then we kept going.
yeah, we kept going.
It was intense.
And so I guess the next day was that we were going. So I woke up on my birthday. I don't mind saying, like in the lowest place, right?
Right.
It's all Garth Brooks, right?
I woke up.
No, and then we're headed to Vegas. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And we're gonna get real in Vegas. Right. Right. We're gonna get real in Vegas. You want me to tell the Baker story? Because I have new eyes.
Okay, tell me the Baker
Remember
story.
the Baker story?
You tell
I
me.
think it was Baker.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the Baker story, okay? Because
Okay,
I've never
go.
told the Baker story. And the Baker story is this: when I was 16 years old, I knew this mailman, right? And he was like dating the lady next door, and he said he wanted to make a
Okay.
bet on a pony, right? He was a sports dude, and he wanted us, my buddy, and me to go to Vegas with him because he needed some drivers and some company, and he wanted to make this bet. But before he made this bet, he needed a bump, and that was in Baker, a bump in Baker.
There better
Right.
be a novel like ChatGPT called
Exactly. So
Bump in Baker.
So we drove out to Baker, at nightfall, and had to go in this dude's backyard who evidently wasn't home. I don't know. I wasn't on the dig, but there was some 8-ball buried in the backyard, and it was the first and last time I tried coke. I'll just say that.
Okay. What
Okay.
was your experience like?
Not
do you
good.
want to share?
It was just
Okay.
too jaw grinding, and when I got to a place called XS Road, I wanted to pull over and. I needed water. It was miserable. I'm not that guy. It's too sweaty. Forget it. But by the time we got to Piccolo
I think that's
Pizza,
a good characterization.
yeah, but I got to tell you, that Vegas was different. That's why I'm saying new eyes. I was going there I was a child. I was 16. But you wanted an adventure. I don't know how my parents let me go, but I'm going to tell you, I went. And rather than tell all that story, I went and I, gambled and drank and had a good time and came home safe. That was good. But So I wanted to point out that this time, and I went to Vegas for years to gamble, but this time, no gambling, no
Right.
odds. I went for a different reason whatsoever.
Right.
Altogether, I mean, right? So, and it was kind of profound because Vegas has changed so much.
Right.
And you'd never really stayed anywhere near downtown.
Correct.
Or in a casino, right? Is that true?
I stayed at the Luxor.
Okay. Oh, yeah. How was that? How many years ago?
That was like definitely before COVID.
Oh, okay.
Like-
Well, not that long ago then. 5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 5 years. Yeah, maybe 5 years
Was
ago.
it intense for you?
Yeah, like I usually have a time limit of Vegas of like 2.5 days, and then I gots to go.
Yeah.
That's like check.
It's too noisy.
My
You don't
Vegas.
gamble
Yeah,
and drink.
yeah,
so, I
exactly.
mean,
I don't gamble. I don't drink. I'm not trying to get chicken fingers or blowjobs, so I don't want to put money in a slot. I don't want to play
because you can
craps.
get anything in Vegas. Like, you can get holiday sauce in your boobs. Right?
Hollandaise sauce on your boobs.
Right.
If that's what you're into.
Right. I mean,
and if it was for sale, it'd be for sale in Vegas.
We can't go through all the Vegas history.
But people have their fetishes, you know.
But
They can be
do.
all
Yeah,
satisfied
I mean,
in Las Vegas.
Right.
Even if it's good stuff, like you're into vegan Indian food, or you're into massages, or you're into sound baths.
the
it's
rooms
also
are
here
great
good.
because
They're comfortable and clean.
Yeah, they want you to stay.
They want you to stay.
And there's no clocks in the casino.
No clocks anywhere.
And it's loud and quite noisy where I start to get like kind of like a dew on my arms, right? And I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Yes.
I'm panicking.
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
where's the exit? Like, take my hand. Let's
Right.
run to the exit.
I know. And then
We're like
we
cartoonish.
went down to under the canopy, I guess we call it, right? On Main Street or Fremont Street, I think. Fremont Street is the street where, they did the YouTube video. It's downtown. They got the... Yeah, right? And it's just...
Which song was it, though?
Yeah, still haven't...
Is it that? No, it's
yeah,
not
that's
that
the one. Yeah, yeah.
Is it?
Still haven't found what I'm looking for. Yeah, when there was no canopy there, right? In the 80s. And so back then, I was in the 80s, you could get like at 3 a.m, it'd say on the side, it'd say $1.99 T-bone steak and eggs, for $1.99. And now none of that's happening. What's happening is we went down to the first little, let's call it the Vegas bodega. And we went in there and girl said, oh, we don't have it. We just want to roll a joint because you could smoke in there, right? Turned out we got rooked.
Rooked?
We got rooked. Don't you remember? We got rooked. There was a tobacco joint.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, we got totally
I know.
taken.
Yeah, it was.
It said sativa on it real big, and I was like,
and it was like 0.0. I mean, we're in Rome, I suppose. We're doing. I mean, we weren't drinking.
I wanted to do the basic Roman thing.
Exactly. So
which
we
is
had to.
minimal.
We had to resort to. We had to resort to ritual. So the middle day, then we went a whole cool thing. We went to in the front of Bellagio, which now seems to be. See, Carolyn has a sense to go find portals. This was definitely the center of town.
Yeah, I'd
Right.
say. Mm-hmm.
And we ended up, as usual, trying to find parking, but we made it up to the street level.
Right.
And we paid to wait for this complete eruption, a firecracker dance of water. Is that what we were waiting for?
Yes.
Right? So I was like, okay, we'll wait for that. And then we had...
So it goes off every day at 3 p.m.
And more. Like 3 times a day, right?
And then it goes off every 30 minutes till 8 o'clock.
And across the street is the fake Eiffel Tower.
Correct.
Among other things around this large pool of water is Caesar's Palace.
Which is done like a big arc.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Right. I mean, we were down there in the trenches, but I should point out that I was getting very thirsty and dehydrated on our little journey, right? So, so we couldn't park up in a bar because it was just too loud with the ching, 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 people smoking.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Cigarette smoke, that's what has me.
They still let that go on.
Yeah.
So we went to the Starbucks. I'm not even a fan of that, but I know they have drinks
But
there.
it was
Do they have drinks there at Starbucks?
Well, no,
have
they
drinks
don't have alcohol. They have coffee and tea. But the thing is we just needed to get something that was not alcohol or red number 40. So we went to the Starbucks, which
and I
was
paid
the only...
$14 for 2 bottles of water.
Yes.
But I did get a pretty good seat at the window.
Right.
Yeah, and we were able to sort of, people watch, which led us to think, wow, there are a lot of pasty people drinking gigantic red drinks.
Right.
And they were all waiting for the
Kind of pudgy, pale.
and just blowing money. I mean they're good people, but they're blowing money. I mean, Vegas is going to win. Just 60-40, they're going to win.
It's Samsara land.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it is the land of
And you
indulgence.
get ripped off for joints.
Here's the thing, sometimes I go on a trip and I'm thinking I'm looking for something and something else happens. Like
Always.
right, so I went to Africa to look for animals, and what really impressed me most were the people, right? So this time I went to Vegas with new eyes, looking for these portals, these places where people perhaps, they're focal points. They're places where people meet. So, when we ran, I want to talk about the young man we ran into who was without house, homeless.
Yeah.
Or is that a euphemism for people who need mental, need help?
I don't know. I think
both.
At this point, if you're homeless, you probably need some counseling after it, even after you get housed, probably.
You were really sweet to help him because he was pointing out that he was not drinking.
Yes.
How old do you think that guy was? 30, 35?
It's hard to say how old people are. I never could sometimes
he wanted
guess.
He wanted to light his cigarette or whatever, so you helped him with that. And,
yeah, why not?
And I know, but he was looking me in the eye, and I was really, when you're looking somebody in the eye, it really matters because there's so many people, and we had to talk about it. It came up so often in our words before we got to the mic, which was it was like every 6 feet there was a person that was in need of something. They were homeless.
Yeah, there's lots of homeless people.
They're everywhere. I mean, the weather it was warm, and it doesn't rain, but we walked the walk too. I mean, we were in front of the federal building, smoking a joint. I'll just say we were doing a ritual, smoking a joint.
Yeah.
And there was they don't let the homeless park up in front of the federal building.
No.
So I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I don't know. There's a problem on the street. And so the thing about Vegas this time wasn't the slots or the gambling or caught up in, all the indulgence that goes on. So I was kind of seeing it with new eyes. I was seeing it as like, kind of a wow, I think we've hit a diminishing return of like privilege and, like giant red drinks. I'll just point that out.
Yeah.
You talk. You talk.
It's like the logical end of culture has been reached over and over again with Las Vegas, which is, Samsaraville.
I saw everyone was getting along, but I mean, it was. Are we talking? Is it a downer? I mean, what was your impression of this?
The day that Tina Turner died.
Yeah. You think that was significant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, I think she was an icon, really.
Yeah.
There's nobody like her.
Right.
Right?
Nobody was like her.
Yeah, and at the end of her life, she became a devout, I think, Buddhist, or she chanted.
Is that what you were thinking about during the firecracker water?
No, actually,
ritual?
I was not thinking about her. I was thinking about what kind of ritual that was.
Well, we did a ritual. You want to talk about it?
No, I'm talking about the layout itself.
Tell me about that.
Well,
because you were the one that pointed out the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower is like
fake Eiffel Tower.
It's like a symbol of an obelisk. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a designed by a Freemason, built in sacred geometric proportions.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Well, what do you think that had to do with the center of this city? I mean, you were right to point out that. I mean, this was designed.
It's a phallic symbol. You have to look at it symbolically, not just literally. Like, it's a replication of the Eiffel Tower in the middle of Las Vegas.
Right. And we were talking about feng shui.
Symbolically, it's a phallus. It's a giant phallus, and it's in front of a curvature, grandiose fountain display that plays, this fireworks in the water.
Right. Show.
Show. It's a performance. It's a Bellagio fountain show.
Right.
The music is synced with the fountains, and then it opens like this, and then it opens like that. You know what I'm saying? And it opens with the God Bless America thing first. So it's a spell. They're utilizing America spell to Americans with beauty and grandiosity and honor, and do you know what I'm saying? Like,
and sensationalism.
Yeah, and like in being in awe, like church, you know what I'm saying? Like a cathedral. It is a cathedral in its own right. It's an art piece. It's a
Oh, for
temple.
sure.
It's a
Yeah.
temple in its own right, and
Right.
it's flanked by temples. All of these huge mega structures, really, let's be real, are modern temples.
Wow. Good
All
point.
of
Yeah.
them.
For money.
For money,
Yeah.
well, for money and for
Indulgence.
influence, and like to that they have high level feng shui masters helping them design elements of it for their maximum success.
Yeah.
And the proliferation of their building and their energy to last.
That's what
through
got us
the
into the idea of the feng shui. And remember the things that were placed around hotels,
Yeah.
particularly like you introduced me to the idea of entrance.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that a little more, because
Okay,
we were
so
sitting at Starbucks and you were going,
Etymologically,
yeah.
it means entrance, to
Entrance.
entrance somebody. When you walk into the Bellagio, say, or the Caesar's Palace, or whatever it's called,
Right.
you are entranced. Why?
Yeah.
Because of the lighting, the use of gold decorations, the
it's
use
planned
of
out completely.
the use of like large palm trees. So, you know what I'm saying? It's feng shuied of like
Perfect placement.
yeah, perfect placement, and then like with river rock surrounding the gardenias. It's just perfect, like Disneyland, perfect, beautiful.
Yeah.
The casinos, yeah.
Right. There's no question. I mean,
Right, and they're maximized.
besides the noise, it's eye candy.
It is eye candy
But the
everywhere you
noise
look.
is really difficult.
The noise and the cigarette
And the
smoke.
cigarette smell.
I just can't. So
Right.
that's it.
And there was a lot more children.
Oh yeah.
Children, as many children
Homeless
as homeless
people and children.
Yeah, it's a family
I
event
saw
now,
I
Vegas.
saw multiple people bringing their kids, and I was like, whoa. I mean, and young kids, like 3 kids under the age of 5. I was like, with strollers, and I was
Well,
like,
gambling softened up now. They don't have the pull the hand. Well, they have some of that, but now it's the Buffalo game. All that sort of easy money they bring in. Less.
so is there child care?
There is, yeah. Like Circus is kind of the child care. I mean, you put your kid on the 3rd floor and he goes crazy with all the games, and you just leave him there for hours. I mean, that's what we did. But my kids were older, and we were there for an event. But they still wanted to go. There's roller coasters, and and it's a good idea. I mean, if you want Dad to drop 1,000, Dad gives you 200 to spend on the roller coaster and big red drinks. And then, he's going to lose that at the craps table.
Right.
Yeah. And Mom wants to see Barry Manilow
Right.
and Tone Loc.
And the little sister wants to go shopping.
Right. We didn't do that, no. But we spent most of the day, I guess, in that center point, which I really had never been down there. So it was kind of a good area to drift and end up in, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Because I had new eyes. You've never been there.
Yeah.
And I'd really never seen the Bellagio pool. And it's,
Pool?
well, that pond. I mean,
Oh, you
it's
mean
like
like
3 football fields
the
large.
fountains?
The fountain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably
It's
2
pretty
football
grandiose.
fields. Yeah.
I'd say the word grandiose is not.
I'll bet you Caesars,
Overblown.
people in Caesars on that side have to pay more for that window view,
Right.
for to look at that.
Right.
Right. Because we had room I mean, I mean, every hotel now has like 25 floors. It's a metropolis.
Right.
I mean, it's so built up now.
Where were we? Where you were pointing out all the hotels? Where were we?
Pointing out all the hotels. You mean on the freeway or in the hotel, pointing out other hotels?
Where was I? I was very recently with someone who was like, see, hotel. Yeah, I was with you. Not
Okay. Where were we?
Government workers, you told me.
Yeah. You mean working on hotels?
No, for places to stay while working.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Basically, like poor apartments, basically for contracted workers.
Yeah, that's kind of been going on through history. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to an area that has a lot of money, you need workers. They don't live there. They got to come from the outside, because they can't afford to live in places like Santa Barbara.
Right.
But Vegas people. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember now. Right. So we friended up all the door dudes in this hotel, and I don't mind saying those guys are great guys. They know what's going on, and we're trying to do the math on you can afford to live in Vegas, and as a worker or if you're in the food union and stuff. So there's a lot of labor unions there and stuff. It's all corporate. I mean, remember we were like joking like there's no more free pour in Vegas.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's all corporate pour now.
Yeah.
So
they push a button and dispense the drink to you. It's just like,
yeah.
They may as well be robots.
It's not neighborhood anymore.
Right.
Right. You want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back to The Drift.
Welcome back.
Okay, so I found this quote about the Mojave, and I just wanted to read it. We passed the great arid deserts of the West, driving through canyons and beneath rocky outcroppings and over great crevasses. We drove through the Mojave Desert, the Owens Valley and Death Valley, and the dust entered our bloodstream and flowed through it to every part of our body. The West was both eerie and breathtakingly beautiful, and we wanted to live there forever.
Yeah, that's a beautiful Psychogeo quote, right?
Right? That's Carl Wiggins from a book called Wrong Planet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I really appreciated him talking about how eerily, breathtakingly beautiful is the Mojave, because it's so unusual. It doesn't look like anywhere else.
12 Shades of Rust, right?
Right, 12 Shades of Rust.
I know, it was like that.
Yeah, and it's also so desolate, so remote, that there is like a sense of isolation and aloneness. Yeah, and mystery. And so it's no surprise to me then, looking into the Mojave, that a bunch of artists have been associated with the Mojave, but also people who are religious or occultists have definitely had a place to escape to in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah, because of the freedom, right?
Yeah.
And the mystery and the vastness.
Being completely unencumbered by...
And the people, like you were saying, Jack Parsons went there to blow up rocks and to do magic.
Jack Parsons was a rocket scientist in post-war Los Angeles. He was responsible for revolutionizing solid-state rocket fuels, and he was one of the founders of the Jet Propulsion Lab, also known as JPL, which has been instrumental in rocketry and space missions ever since. So that's Jack Parsons.
So, interesting, because when we were doing research on Jack Parsons, I got really into his story. And supposedly there is a rock out there at China Lake, which is, up in the desert, 200 miles from LA?
About 150 miles north of Los Angeles is the Naval Weapons Station, China Lake.
Right. And at the time, it wasn't necessarily a naval weapons station when Parsons was, experimenting with solid and liquid fuel, right? Mm-hmm. So there was just all this land that he could do that. And evidently, there's a rock somewhere back there, scribed on it as E equals MC squared. It wasn't from Parsons, but it's just back there now somewhere. And there's people who have tried to go back there and see where these explosions and these magical things have happened. And now the government owns it. So that's one big mystery of the desert, according to me.
Right. So regarding Jack Parsons, the father of modern rocketry, he has a crater on the dark side of the moon named after him.
Oh, that's right.
And so not only was he famous for being a chemistry genius and an engineering genius, but he was also a known occultist. He was part of Thelema, which is a magical order, and he would perform not only rocket tests in the desert, but he would also do rituals in the desert. And among other things, he claims that he channeled the goddess Babylon and wrote a book that she dictated, that he wrote down in the Mojave Desert. So
that's good stuff. That's the sex magic.
Right. So when he was in the desert channeling this goddess who called herself Babylon, he was engaging in sex magic to get into the right headspace to channel the goddess Babylon. So do people come to the Mojave to channel goddesses, or does the goddess tell you to go to the Mojave to channel her?
Well, that's a good question.
Right.
Well, isn't there other interesting sort of rumors along the 395? We were talking earlier about the, who was it, Charles Manson's Tex? Tex Watson fleeing the scene, or fleeing the cops, drove up to, which is kind of the Lone Pine area where we started, the
I
top.
think so. I think when the heat was hot, he got away and ran into the desert. So, it seems like that's the kind of the theme I found looking into the desert, the Mojave area, is people go there to escape from something or to
Yeah.
escape from the world and to get more inward to themselves.
Yeah, like Jim Morrison would go to the desert to expand his mind, do drugs.
And write the poetry that became the lyrics of the Doors.
Right. There you go. That's
Right?
exactly right.
And,
But did you mention Parsons' muse Cameron?
so Jack Parsons, the father of American rocketry, he was married to a woman named Marjorie Cameron, who was a post-war artist, who also had time in the desert as a painter, and she would do psychedelic mushrooms in the desert and write about it, and then throw art shows back in Los Angeles.
Yeah, she became an LA icon.
Then the police would raid her art shows because of obscenity laws of the day, of the 1940s and 50s.
So when Jack Parsons left the earth, we'll get to that, right? Because he wasn't still married to her then, to Cameron, right?
I think they were still married.
They were when he died. Oh, no kidding! I didn't know that because
They were separated, but they were married.
Because as it goes, Jack Parsons comes back from the sex magic in the desert and meets Cameron,
Right.
who is there at his lodge, right? This place they call the lodge, and they were together for a while until he was sort of pushed out by the main crowd. How would you say? I mean, Parsons was he was definitely. They were looking at him since he knew these secrets about solid rocket fuel, and they were definitely proprietary secrets. I think the FBI was looking at him. Wouldn't you
So
say? Because
Jack
he ended up working
Parsons-
at a gas station. No, please go ahead.
So Jack Parsons was an expert on chemistry and explosives,
Right.
and he ended up dying in an explosion in his house in Pasadena. It blew up the lab that he was working in, the garage area where the lab was, and it blew him up and part of his face off, apparently. And that's how he was killed. And at the time, he had his security clearance revoked and then reinstated, and he was someone that probably knew a lot of dangerous things to know at the time of a space race and
Oh, there's no question he did.
the early development stages of rocket propulsion.
Right? And so he died of an explosion in his house, but that's what the cops say.
That's the official story.
And before that, he was working at a gas station. Like, that's how...
Because he was discredited.
I mean...
He was discredited because even though being a genius and father of modern rocketry, he was also an occultist.
Okay, right. And then then Cameron, did they have children?
No.
No, they didn't have children. Then Cameron actually ended up, in the desert, right? Living in the desert.
She also
Till
ended
she
up in
was
the desert.
95. Is that right?
She died in 1995.
No, okay. She died in 95, but she lived in the desert.
Right.
So many people.
So yeah,
live
so many
out in the
people are
desert.
attracted to the desert, and and the people are eccentric and doing a lifestyle that other people aren't doing around them.
Yeah.
And that makes them kind of outcasts and outlaws.
Also, I wanted to mention we talked about it's called California City, and it's the most uninhabited or biggest city that's unpopulated.
It's like the largest ghost town.
It's the largest ghost town. Because I remember we were talking about ghost towns, right? And there's many of them actually in California because of the gold rush. And they start little towns and little mines, and they go away really quickly.
Right.
And we know that some of this has existed throughout the Mojave Desert. And we also know that people have been there for, 10 to 12,000 years?
Right. There are
Indians?
many petroglyphs and pictographs in the area of the Mojave.
Of the Mojave.
Yeah, and there are cave systems. And so, yeah, we know that the area has been inhabited for many, many, many generations, even before the Spanish arrived in California.
Yeah, and that's so these ghost towns or mining towns or, gold rush towns like Vegas was kind of one of them.
Right.
And Vegas flanks the sort of eastern part of the Mojave.
Right.
And then Lone Pine, let's say, flanks the most northern. And then even the Salton Sea, which I guess is
Completely unnatural.
Yeah, I mean it's really pretty inhospitable there too.
Yeah, let's take a little break and then we'll come back and talk about how inhospitable the rest of the Mojave is.
Okay.
Okay. and so it's no surprise to me that it's a hotbed of UFO activity. In my research, I found several stories about people seeing strange craft and then being surrounded by black helicopters and such. And but anyway, one of the most recent ones that I found interesting is there's a podcaster blogger named Jeremy Corbell, and he got a hold of some footage of unknown craft, triangular shaped craft hovering above the military base there in 29 Palms in 2021. And the footage went everywhere at the time, and apparently nobody can explain what those are.
It was the triangle shape.
Yeah, well, black triangular shaped objects hovering over the military base.
Right. That's where they seem to pop up, over nuclear facilities, military bases.
Right.
But the triangle shape is quite popular now.
Right.
It's not the saucer that's popular anymore. It's the triangle shape.
Right. What's up with that? Why don't we see saucers anymore?
But you should tell your story. It's really quite good.
Okay,
Would you
so
mind telling?
I have had a UFO experience myself, not in the Mojave. We were talking before we recorded this about
it's
how
worth talking about.
he's always telling me that he would love to see a UFO, and he's really interested in it. And he said it would change his whole life.
It would.
Why do you say that?
Well, it might, maybe continue to disrupt the conventions that I've been learning about my whole life, such as religion, philosophy. It would be wonderful to, that something else is out there. Right?
Okay, well, I mean, even before I saw a UFO, my ideas of religion and philosophy and such were already very different from those around me. So,
of course, right. But what I'm saying is like this would be kind of physical evidence, right, with the eye. I mean, you think I think as well. I think that the crop circles are a huge indication of messaging.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
And some of the monolithic structures around the world that are sort of unexplained on how they've been moved.
Yeah.
And these are the reasons that I've got into the UFO phenomenon, and I've been searching and looking.
Right.
But you have this story.
Okay, so in 2005, November 2005, I was living in Northridge, and
LA County,
which is in Los Angeles County, and I was leaving an apartment at maybe 1:30, 1:45 in the morning, and it was a Thursday night, so technically Friday morning. And I was with someone at the time. He was driving. I was in the passenger seat. We were driving on Reseda Boulevard north towards the 118. We were passing alongside what is Northridge Park, like Northridge Recreation Center, on our right-hand side. And all of a sudden, there was a black triangular-shaped object directly above the car.
Wow.
Yeah. Not like, hey, what's that light over there? But it was absolutely directly above the car, completely silent, lights in all three corners. And had there been a moonroof on the car and it had been open, I could have, hit it with a baseball throwing it up. It was directly above the car. There was no question that it was absolutely checking us out, and it was keeping pace with us. It just appeared there. It didn't fly over to us and then hover over us. It just appeared directly over us.
Right.
And the person I was with, the person who was driving the car, he was in the military, and he has excellent eyesight, and he's the type of person to say, oh, that's a Chinook, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Russians make it, and it's used for whatever.
See, two people is so convincing when I hear people, two witnesses.
Right.
Yeah, but continue.
So anyway, I was with somebody who had been in the military and knows all about aircraft, conveniently, because I had never been in the military and I don't know anything about aircraft. And so he was driving, I was in the passenger seat. Both of us saw it. It was unmistakable. And as quickly as it appeared, it completely disappeared. It didn't fly off and, oh, there it went. No, it completely just disappeared. It didn't make a sound. It was very strange.
Yeah, do you think that the UFO phenomenon is synonymous with vacant places like the desert, the ocean? People see these crafts coming up from the ocean, vacant places. Antarctica is popular.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
a
saw one in
whole
the
other
valley.
show. But I saw one in the valley.
Which,
And Los Angeles is, huge population density, and granted Northridge at night, 1:30 1:45 in the morning is pretty quiet.
Well, you know, I've heard you tell this story at least 4 or 5 times, actually, in front of different groups, because people are talking about their own witnesses, credible people that I love and know they're really smart, and they tell these stories, and I'm really passionate about hearing them.
Yeah, I've never been embarrassed to tell my UFO story because it absolutely happened, and I'm really relieved it didn't happen in the middle of nowhere, like, say, the Mojave, or in some Midwestern trailer park.
Hey, I was looking up in the Mojave all the time.
Right. But what changed my perception as a result of that experience was those things can appear at any point, which means to me they could be all around us all the time and we wouldn't even see them.
Right. I think you're right. I think our retina can't see everything. And
well, it's a technology, and I really love this quote by Arthur C. Clarke. He says, "Any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic."
Right.
So what appeared and disappeared, cloaked and uncloaked, whatever, in front of me was a technology.
Right.
And it looked like magic to me.
Yeah.
And anyway, I've never forgotten that, and it was a very intense experience, and I don't think it changed the way I saw the world. I kind of believed anyway that there are phenomenon we don't know and cannot see, and but I'm always struck when you say it would just change your whole life, because it didn't change my whole life.
No, I know, but I think that's what's great about you is like you're. I love people who really believe in what they're doing, what they're seeing. They, I want to know too. I want to find out. I want to feel that or see it. I don't know.
Well, I always have more questions.
I'm a seeker.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a seeker. I always have more questions than answers, and I always have more.
The drift
what
is
ifs.
about seeking.
Right. The drift is about seeking and seeing a place with new eyes.
Yeah.
And anyway,
I think,
that was my place to experience that.
Yeah,
Reseda
I'm glad
Boulevard
you told that story.
in
I
Northridge.
bet you 10 years ago you'd have been less, or, a little more uneasy about telling that story.
Maybe I wouldn't have told it on a podcast, but
Right.
I've told lots of people for
Right,
sure.
cool.
Yeah, and I'm really glad it happened with somebody else and not in the middle of nowhere, and I was not on drugs. I was so
Good.
there's that.
Yeah, it's always, I was drunk.
No,
Yeah,
I was
no
definitely
excuses.
not drunk. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, go check out the Mojave. It's awesome.
Cool.